Founder Space, Startup Supercharged. I'm Captain Hoff, CEO of Founder Space, the leading global startup accelerator. I'm also author of the award-winning books, Make Elephants Fly, Surviving a Startup, and The 5 Forces. Well, my parents had a huge influence on my life. So my father was literally a rocket scientist from MIT. He trained the early astronauts. He was totally into technology. And as a young child, he told me, he said, son, computers are going to rule the world. Study computers. That was his only advice. And my mom, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. So she was a creative, she was an artist, and she was a painter, and she did these amazing sculptural paintings and brought me to art shows, all over the world, trying to expose me to as many new artists and ideas as possible. So I was at the intersection of this hardcore engineering and this total creative force of pushing me in each direction. So as a child, I actually wanted to do both. Like I'm a curious person. That's one of my defining traits. And I was interested in absolutely everything. So I was programming computers, as soon as I could get my hands on them, I started to figure out and program them. But when I programmed them, I was more interested in making games because, like all young people, like I was a total gamer before gamers were hot. Like this is in the old days when if you were a gamer, you were a total geek and not in a good sense. So I was into Dungeons and Dragons. I had literally made hundreds of board games that I played with my friends, and I got my hands on a computer, just started coding away, making games. At the same time, I wanted to be a filmmaker and an artist. So I was making like 50 different movies throughout my childhood where I'd organize all my friends and get that all together. And so I had these two parts of my personality. But when it came time to enter college, I listened to my father because he was really smart, put it that way. He's a very smart guy. And my mother also says, I couldn't even support myself being an artist. So you better study something that actually can help you in life. And please don't go to film school. Nobody ever gets a job as a director. You'll never be Steven Spielberg. Just forget it. So I listened to them. I studied electrical computer engineering, and that was a mistake. It wasn't in my soul. Like I didn't care about, I liked coding because I liked making games. I didn't like coding, just for the sake of coding. And electrical computer engineering was really the hardware, like, everything from, designing transistors, circuits, all this stuff. I just wasn't that interested. So I actually went through college. I did extremely well because I'm a driven person. Like that's core to my personality. And I studied and studied, and I, got almost a 4.0. I got out of college. I had, incredible job offers, but at the same time, my heart wasn't in it. So I also applied to grad school. So I just went out there. I applied to two different types of grad school. One, I applied to Princeton University in philosophy. I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to be a philosopher? Like it's totally impractical, but I've done this engineering stuff. If I get accepted, I'll just do that. And then I also applied to the two top film schools, NYU and USC. And I sat back and waited. And I actually got accepted to one of those. I got accepted to USC Film School, and I just jumped on it. I took that opportunity. I didn't go down the engineering path. And, that leads to a whole separate set of stories. My dad's a professor. My mom was really committed to her art. And I am the weirdo who's gone off on my own track. So I like to say, when people ask me, like, what do you do? I like to say, I've had more careers in my life than cats have had lives. I have done so many different things. Like going to film school was just like one of many different things. I rewrote manga in English. I was a voice actor. I've done just, now I'm a venture capitalist, but I was also a startup founder, an entrepreneur. I was an animator. I did just so many different things in my lifetime. Game designer. The commonality is, I think for me, my parents had high standards, but they were pretty nice. So when I made that choice to actually take the leap and just go my own way, they supported me. They did not, they gave me advice, but by the time I graduated college and I'd done the engineering thing, I knew that's what I didn't want to do. And then I had to figure out what I did want to do. And that's when I just started trying all sorts of different things. I think it's very hard not to be influenced by your parents, by your peers, by society. Like, let's face it, human beings do not live in a bubble. Like, as much as we like to think of ourselves as independent souls, we are all interconnected. Our independence is actually an illusion. So we think we make all these decisions based on our, independent, individualistic nature. But that nature actually is a fabrication of our imagination. Like, it's a construct. It doesn't actually exist in reality. So we human beings, we have all these forces on us coming from all different directions, from everybody we interact with, from all the experiences we've had, and then we have our genetic makeup, like, who we are, what our inclinations are, and they're constantly pushing us in different directions. Now, to be practical, I tell young people, look, if you are not passionate about your choices, then what is your life? Like, I like to say life is an adventure. Like, I want to live my life like it were a storybook. And I feel like if I am not pushing myself into new, exciting spaces while I have the choice and the ability to do so, what's the point in life? Like, what am I doing? I'm just spending time. I'm going to earn some money and then I'm going to die. Like, and I'm not going to have those amazing experiences, go down those paths that I wouldn't have taken. So I say it's a shame. Like, it's a shame. Look at your life. What story do you want to tell yourself? What story do you want to live? Well, you are the author of your life. You can make the choices to make that an amazing, exciting story. And yes, there might be challenges. Yes, you might make mistakes, but you will get to see what happens. And if you don't do it, well, then you are choosing a very boring book for your life if you're right. And I encourage you not to do that. I actually write about this in my book, Surviving a Startup, because I coach entrepreneurs now. And entrepreneurs will come up to me and they're like, I am so passionate. They literally exude passion about their projects. They believe in it. They are in love with their projects. But there's a difference between passion for a direction in life and passion to actually achieve something in a certain field. So we have to separate those. Now, let me explain. It's kind of fuzzy for most people. They intermingle the two passions. So there's one passion, which is your overall life direction. Like, I think you should be passionate about your life direction. Like, if you aren't passionate about your life direction, shame on you. Like, you're never going to reach your full potential. The people who actually achieve amazing things do it because they are driven to do it and they go above and beyond. So they need that type of passion. However, in the real world, there's a place where that passion meets the real world. And that is where you actually go to make something. And if you are making something for other people, a product, artwork that they are going to appreciate, whatever it is that you are making to put out into that world, writing a book, creating a movie, it doesn't matter. Whatever that is that you are creating has to actually also resonate with them. If it only resonates with you, you are literally, it's not going to take off, at least not in your lifetime. So if you really want to be a starving artist and just follow your own passion and ignore like whatever happens in the world, you can do that, right? And you will create whatever you create. And if it doesn't resonate with other people, well, that was your choice. You literally, you will die in obscurity, but you may become famous after you die. You never know, right? But what good does that do you? I don't know what good it does to be famous after you're long gone. It helps, might help society and the world. And maybe if you can believe that that will happen, maybe that will make you feel good. However, most people I know want some rewards during their lifetime. They don't want it after they cease to exist. So what I tell people is that for entrepreneurs especially, but it's true for artists, it's true for every profession. Like, if you are creating something, it doesn't matter how much you love it, how passionate you are. What matters is how much other people love it. So don't be blinded by your own passion. Like, don't fall in love with your product or your project. With what matters is, no matter how much you love it, it doesn't mean anything, right? In the real world. All that matters is how much the people you're making it for, your audience, how much they respond to it. How do they respond to it? And this is a process, of iteration, right? Great artists take off because they try lots of things and they see what resonates in the society. They see what goes. And then when they get that feedback, and naturally they're putting themselves into it, they're putting their passion into it, but it's more than just their passion. It's their passion connecting with creating something that elicits a strong response, a strong passion, a need in other people. That's what I tell creatives. Where do we draw that line? Like, if we're always seeking validation, we'll never produce something new, because most people just respond to what they already know. Like, they respond to a little better version of what they already know. And if you're really taking a leap forward, like Picasso or any of these great artists, you're going to be pushing the boundaries, which mean most people, when they first see it, they're going to say, what is this? Like, this is, what are you doing? It's no good at all. I would never buy that. So, there's a smart way to do it. So, usually, the people who actually end up breaking through, and we have to separate something where you're just making a commercial product, which a lot of the entrepreneurs I coach do, to you're making something that is really going to, grab the zeitgeist and influence the culture and push everything forward. Now, if you're taking that bigger leap, kind of that bigger innovative leap into something that is going to either transform the art world, or it's going to come out as a movie or a book and just blow people away. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Well, that's a much bigger leap, and it's going to be much riskier. Like, every time you're asking people to take a leap, like with what they're doing, it's going to, you're going to be taking a bigger chance, because there's no validation in the past. You can't get people to tell you you're necessarily on the right track. So, what I tell people to do, number one, you have to have a clear vision of what you want to say. You have to have a real feeling that this is meaningful to you. And you have to realize at the same time, are there a lot of other people like me? Like, if you're one of a kind, if you're so bizarre and strange that, stacking up ladybugs in a jar is fascinating to you, but it's not fascinating to anybody else, that's, it's not going to take off. But if that there are a lot of other people who have your sensibility, and even though it might not be everybody, but that will eventually resonate with them when they get it. So what you need to do to be successful is actually, most people are successful not alone. We have this myth of the independent artist, the independent creative who goes off and does something all on their own. But it never works that way. They're influenced by all the people around them, and they're usually plugged into a network of other people who actually can move the levers, right? Who are tastemakers. We call them influencers today, but it's been around forever. Like, it doesn't matter, how far back you go to ancient Athens, there were influencers out there. And really getting those influencers on board with what you're doing early on, getting not necessarily their feedback, but their input, not their approval. You don't need their approval, but you do want to see what they think, and putting all that together, and then going out with and cultivating those relationships so that when you go out with it, those influencers, at least some of them, can get behind you and start pushing it. That can make all the difference. A lot of times, following your own North Star, wherever it takes you, is really important, because that allows you to do things differently than other people and ahead of other people. And we've all know that if you're kind of leading the way down that path, number one, kind of the leaders, the ones who are forging the way, they kind of name it and claim it, right? Their name becomes associated with whatever happens, and they get the lion's share of the attention for doing that. And it doesn't matter if you're Elon Musk, or some artist out there like Banksy doing his own thing, and then boom, he takes off in a big way. These people who actually forge their own path are really important. But you also have to remember that they're not doing it in a vacuum, right? They're doing it within the society. Society has trends. A lot of the things that take off that we say, oh, they were doing it because let me put it this way. You started a podcast, right? But let's say you had started a poetry journal, right? Where you're writing poetry. Poetry just isn't big now. Like, it's very niche. It is very niche. I guarantee you could have been you could have tried that for the past 10 years, writing poetry, and you probably still, nobody would have heard of you. Like, nobody. So you have to catch sort of the zeitgeist of where society is going. You saw this new thing, podcast, you were intrigued by it. You it felt right for you, and you felt like, it was a medium you could do on. And fortunately, podcasts turned out to be an enormous thing. You ended up catching a tidal wave when it was just, a little ripple in the water when you saw it. But there are other ripples out there, and they will only remain ripples. They will never go anywhere. You're never going to be an NBA star if you simply aren't at the athletic level, right? No matter how you could be as passionate as you want, like, about being an NBA star, but if you are 4'9", I'm sorry, you are not going to be an NBA star no matter how hard you try. 4'9" just doesn't cut it. So, there is a reality in life, right? And the people who are really successful, they tend to be a combination of I call them pragmatic dreamers, right? So there's this pragmatic side to them. They actually can assess, what their odds are, what their abilities are, where the opportunities lie in the future. They do it. And let's face it, some people are just lucky. They go off into left field, with no, and they just happen to be lucky and they hit it, and overnight, they become the next big thing. But you don't want to have to count on being lucky, because that is like 1 in a zillion chance that you are going to actually make it. Your chance is really small. So really, the smart people don't count on luck. They actually analyze very closely. And again, it doesn't matter if you're doing a business or you're doing a creative project, whatever it is, you have to look at all the different variables, right? All the different things, from your own innate skill sets, your own personality, what you can handle, how much stress you can handle, all these things, to what's happening in the world around you. What are the trends? What is going to be the next big thing? And the more you can talk to other really smart people like you did, other bloggers, people out there who are in the zeitgeist, right? Looking at what's going on and looking at what they're doing and what they're trying, and is it working or not, and identify that at an early stage before it gets huge, and then put yourself in the right place at the right time, doing just the right thing. Boom, that's when magic happens. I work and I coach and mentor hundreds of entrepreneurs, and some of them are very creative, but they're all trying to do totally new things. They're all trying to break through. They really want to they want to be the next Steve Jobs. They want to, combine all these different things and break through in a way that nobody has before. And in my own life, I've struggled at that, trying all these different things. And let's face it, most of the things I tried didn't work. I tried a lot of stuff. It was complete failure. But I will tell you that it's really important as a creator, as a creative person who wants to do something new, to understand how new ideas are generated. And new ideas are generated through cross currents. I call them cross currents. They come together. If you look at innovation, I wrote a whole book on innovation called Make Elephants Fly. And one of the key ideas behind my book is that innovation doesn't happen necessarily within a discipline. The most innovative spaces are interdisciplinary. So the overlap of multiple spaces. So great innovators they don't get their ideas out of thin air. They don't, Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. He literally made it better. Like, he saw it out there. He thought, wow, this is amazing. But it wasn't, light bulbs were burning out really quickly, and he figured out how to make a filament that would last. When you are innovating on whatever you're doing, you have to look beyond what other people are what other people in your space, in your field, in your whatever profession are actually looking at. Because if you just look at what they look at, you're going to come up with the same ideas they do. Like, the chance of you coming up with something totally new is really small. So you have to look at other disciplines. So in the world today, if you see the most innovative spaces, they are at the convergence of these different disciplines coming together. So let's take biology and computer science, AI with gene editing. That's where we're seeing an explosion of new ideas, new creations, things that will fundamentally change humanity. If you look at any of the, great consumer products that come out there, whether it's a web app or a new, new type of device, whatever it is, it usually combines, influences from the culture, from the arts, from design, with new technologies that are just being born that enable people to do new things. But it's not one or the other. It's putting them together and bringing together people on the team who actually have domain expertise in different areas. So great hardware designers with great creative people and user interface designers. I like to say the amazing thing about iPhone wasn't the hardware. Like, yes, the hardware was pushing the limits because hardware is always advancing. But the great thing was Steve Jobs' vision for a user experience and a user interface that was like nothing else. But even that didn't come from nowhere. Like, he borrowed from a lot of different people, but then he put it together in a new way, a really compelling way that took it to the next level. So I just want to say one more thing. And so one more thing is that, in my work, I do believe in getting, if you want to be creative, you need to get as many sources as possible. So like, I read books on everything from cultural anthropology to poetry to great novels, historical novels, to new, pop literature, to history, whatever it is, and science books. I'm always, like, every week, at least I go through at least one audiobook, like, because I'm an audiobook fanatic. I do it at double speed or faster. And I just like constantly sucking in information because all these people have amazing ideas. And I try to interact with different people in my daily life that have new ideas, because that's where the ideas come from. They don't come from inside you. They're processed inside you, but they come from external sources. And then, as Einstein said, it's combinatorial play. You have all these things floating around in your chunk, your 3-pound hunk of meat, your brain, and you start to naturally fit them together in different ways. And then you see the possibilities. It's very interesting how things are happening. And you could, for example, look at the porn industry or the early e-commerce days and then see the potential. So if, all these people putting in their credit cards, the companies that enable credit card processing actually taking off because they had customers. But then you could extrapolate from that. Oh, if people are willing to do this for porn, they should be able to do this for other products, right? And you could be the Jeff Bezos of the early internet. But it's a really good thing, if you want to innovate, is look at what's taking off in one sphere and then translate that into another. Like, if something is working in one area, how could I make it work in my own area? And a lot of businesses start this way. You're looking at the interface for dating and how simple it is, right? And quickly you can expose yourself to a lot of new things. And you could take that mechanism and then apply it to podcasts, which it's, browsing podcasts on most of the apps is a pain. Like, it's really, there's a big problem with discovery right now. How could we because there's a gazillion podcasts out there and there's some great gems buried in there, but you wouldn't even know they exist. That was my first time where I really had to challenge myself, because I told my parents I'm going to grad school in film and television. I got my master's degrees, my Master of Fine Arts 3 years later. And then I was unemployed. Like every wannabe filmmaker, I was unemployed. And I literally didn't want a job being a production assistant on some shoot. I'd spent all this money and all this time studying filmmaking, but film school doesn't guarantee you anything. It just gives you a piece of paper. And at the end of the day, you might have some skills, but they aren't recognized necessarily by the industry. They still view you as just a recent grad, a student. You're not a professional. So what do you do? Well, I'll tell you what I did. Like, I was determined. I got a hold of the Hollywood directory, which had a list of literally all the top producers and production companies in Hollywood. And I went through that directory and I wrote letters to 150 of the top executives in Hollywood. So I just wrote letters. I wrote a very short, kind of funny little letter, sent it out, and then I waited. And do you know how many responses I got? No, I was lucky. Out of 150, I got 3 responses. 3. So the first person who responded called me up, and it just turned out to be the producer of Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. And he said, I got your letter. I don't have a job for you, but I just wanted to say hello. And I was like, oh, great. So we talked, but he didn't have a job for me. He just wanted to be nice and encourage me. And we had a nice conversation, and then he hung up, and that was over. Number 2, I got a response from, of all companies, Disney. And so Disney calls me in, and I get to meet with their head of production, and she is like, she's the one that can make my career. So I go to that interview. I'm very nervous because I was a very shy guy at the time. I wasn't as outgoing as I am now. I've trained myself to be that, but I was very shy. So I was talking to her, and the interview is going really well. But then she asks a trick question. She asks me, what films do you like? So I have a choice. Like, I can lie, and I can say, I am just, a huge Disney fan. But I was a Disney fan when I was a kid, because in those days, Disney mostly produced content for kids. Or I could say, I'd just been to film school, all the great movies that I loved in film school, these artistic films, Stanley Kubrick, Fellini, all these amazing films. So I chose to just be true to my heart and tell her the films I loved. And I saw her expression just collapse. Like, the interview was over. I was done. Literally, she wrapped up the interview after that and ushered me out of the office. I had blown it completely because I didn't mention Disney films. So I get one more chance, my 3rd strike, and I'm going to be out. I get called in by this big producer. His name is Chuck Freeze. He has this huge building on Hollywood Boulevard, right across from the Man Chinese Theater, with his name on it, Freeze Entertainment. And he has, invites me into this giant office on the top floor with all these Emmys along the wall. He's a big television, TV movie producer, made The Martian Chronicles, tons of other things. And he's this big, heavy guy with gray hair, and from the East Coast. And he looks at me again and he goes, Hoffman, I got your letter. You want a job? And I'm like, yeah, I want a job. I want to be a writer. I want to be a director. Please hire me. Okay, I'll see what I can do. So that was my interview. That was it. And then I get a call back a couple weeks later, and I got a job offer. But it wasn't a writer or director. I got offered a job, as of all things in the world, as a reader. Now, if you don't know what readers are, they are actually paid a pittance, like you can't even live off of it, just a tiny bit of money, to read the scripts for the development executives in companies and the producers so that they don't have to read all the bad scripts. So basically you screen the bad scripts. You read the scripts, you write a synopsis, and you let them know if this is worth their time to read. So it was a job in Hollywood. So I took it. Like, I had no other choice. Like, I couldn't pay the bills with it, but I was going to be working in Hollywood. I took this job, started reading scripts, doing my best that I could. I'm dyslexic, so it was really tough. You have to read really fast. I just plowed through it. A couple weeks later, I had been doing this, and I was like, I can't do this forever. Like, these scripts are really bad. It's kind of torturous job, especially for a person who wants to write. So I contacted Chuck. I sent a message to Chuck, and I said, Chuck, I could do more. I want to talk to you. So I wait. A week later, he calls me into his office. And he looks at me and he goes, Hoffman, what is it? You want to do more? You're not happy with your job? And I was like, Chuck, you saw I can do a good job on the reading stuff, but I want to write. I want to do a writing job. He goes, Hoffman, aren't you ever satisfied? And then that was the end of that. I went back to reading. But a week after that, I got called in to his son's office. Now, his son was a very bitter man. Like, really, he was a lawyer, and he was working for his dad, and he basically failed to make it in Hollywood so he had to rely on nepotism. So his father gave him a job as kind of the head of one of the groups in his company. And he had a big project that he was doing, a TV movie all about the Wild West. And he wanted me to research this. It was about a guy called Francis Parkman, and I actually got to write up the entire miniseries that myself as a synopsis from all the books I read. So this is a great project. He was a grumpy man. He didn't even smile at me. He just handed me it, and I was actually terrified of him. But I went off and I worked insanely hard. So I was doing two jobs now, the reader job and this kind of research writer job. And I did it. And I turned it in. I went back to the guy. He's called Butch Freeze. And I went into his office and he looked at me. He's a very intimidating guy. And he said, this is great. You did a great job. So I knew that I had a chance then. So instantly I messaged Chuck, the head of the company, Chuck Freeze, and I said, I got to talk to you. I could do more. So Chuck, I wait, and another week later, Chuck invites me back into the office, and he looks at me and he says, Hoffman, I just gave you a promotion. What do you want? And I was like, I could do more. I don't have to just research projects. I could actually write my own. Can you give me a break? He goes, Hoffman, go away. So I went away. I went back to my reader job, and I'm reading, and literally, a week and a half later, I walk back into the job, and I didn't report to Chuck. He was too high up. He was the head of the whole company. I reported to the development director. I went into the development director's office to pick up my scripts like I did every week. And she looked at me, and her face was red. Her teeth were clenched, and she was angry. And she said, you got me fired. And she stood up and bolted out of the office. Like, literally leaving me there. I was like, what are you talking about? And then Chuck's assistant came in and got me and said, Chuck wants to see you right now. So I go into Chuck's office. I sit down and I'm like, what is going on here? And Chuck looks at me and Chuck says, Hoffman, you're our new head of development. So that is Hollywood. Like, I was like, I didn't know what that meant. So go Hoffman. So I have to go. So I go back to the office where my boss used to sit. And apparently that's my desk now. I didn't know what to do. And I went to the window and I looked out the window at the Mann Chinese Theater and I'm like, this is bizarre. This is like a movie. It's like Barton Fink or Swimming with Sharks. It's like some strange movie that I'm living, because this isn't what I asked for. I wanted to be a director, not a development executive. In fact, I don't know what a development executive does, but hand scripts out to me. The phone starts ringing. Her phone. And I'm looking at it like, should I pick that up? Like, it's really strange. So eventually it kept ringing. So I picked it up. It's an agent from one of the big agencies, ICM. And he's like, where is so-and-so? And I'm like, well, she's not here right now. Oh, well, can I send in this script? And he starts rambling off. And I'm like, I guess so. Yes, send it in. Then I go and sit at my desk. And all the other readers who have been working as readers, some of them for years and years, come in and I'm behind the desk. And they're like, what are you doing there? Why are you sitting in our desk? And I'm like, well, I'm your new head of development. And they go, oh, really? And I go, yeah, that's what Chuck said. And they go, oh, well, are you going to give me my script? I didn't even know where the scripts were. So they had to show me how to do my job and to give them the script. Then things get really strange, because I know how to give out scripts. I know how to answer the phone, but I really know nothing else about this job. And I was, in film school studying art films for the past 3 years. And before that, I was engineering, and I really didn't know anything about the business of Hollywood. Yet I was in a top executive business role in Hollywood, but I didn't understand it. I didn't read Variety. I didn't read Hollywood Reporter. I thought they were a waste of my time. I'm a creative guy. I don't need to know this stuff. I go into Chuck's office literally the next day, and him and his other son, he hires all his sons because they can't get jobs, is sitting there, and his son is terrified of Chuck, like the younger son, like just terrified. And I am terrified because I don't know what the hell I'm doing in this job. And I'm going to be exposed and fired any second. So we're sitting there, but he's even more afraid than I am of his own father because he's an intimidating guy. And Chuck looks at us, and Chuck just starts around like, we're going to do this TV show and we need this person, this one. And then he turns to me, Hoffman, who do you think we should have star in the female role for this show? And I look at Chuck, and I am just like, I don't even know what the possibility. I don't know the actresses in Hollywood. I maybe know the few most famous ones, but everybody else, I have no clue. And I'm about to blow it. So I say, Chuck, let me think about this. I'll get back to you tomorrow. That's all I could think to say. And he goes, okay. And then, so I sit through the rest of the meeting silent, because I knew nothing, go back to my office. Fortunately, my brother's best friend is a struggling filmmaker in Hollywood at the time. And he is the guy who has a photographic memory and knows literally every A-list actor, B-list actor, C-list actor, D-list actor that ever was. Like every one of them. So I get on the phone and I start describing the part in the TV show that we need to fill. And he's like, oh, this person would be perfect for it. And if she can't do it, then the second choice is this and the third choice is that. So that next day, I go back into Chuck's office. And sure enough, he looks at me and goes, Hoffman, have you thought about it? Who are we going to cast in that role? And I say, well, actually, I've thought about it. And this would be my first choice. This would be my second choice. And if she can't do it, this would be my third choice. He looks at me and he goes, Hoffman, that's brilliant. So I literally faked my way through that job, thinking I was going to get exposed and fired for the next year. And at the end of the year, he loved me. I had actually figured out the job. So I learned. I read the Hollywood Reporter. I read Variety. I did everything I could possibly do. But I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, which is be a writer, creative person. I wasn't doing that. I was just like this middle person in this big machine. And at the end of the year, I decided I was just going to quit. I was going to, if I can't break into Hollywood in the way I want, I saw games taking off. At that time, games were really small, but I was like, games are going to be huge. And I had met the founder of Sega. And the founder of Sega, he's an American, even though it's a Japanese company. And they had this is the early 90s, they had just taken off and beaten Nintendo. The Sega Genesis was #1 in the world. So it was, and he invited me into one of the producers in our company. It was his cousin. So I said, I'd love to go to Japan. I'd love to make games. I've always wanted to make games. I made games as a kid. I programmed them. Can you send me? And he goes, oh, I'll introduce you to my cousin. So I go into his cousin, start talking to him. I tell him all my ideas about games, like all the games I want to create, what I did in high school and creating games and all this stuff. And he goes, we've been wanting to hire a Hollywood person for our Japanese headquarters to go there and generate ideas. I'm going to put you there because he's the chairman of the company. I'm going to send you to Japan. So I go back to Freeze Entertainment, go to Chuck Freeze, and I say, Chuck, you know what? I'm leaving. And he looks at me. He goes, Hoffman, what are you talking about? You've only been here a year. This is a great start in the business. No, Chuck, I'm going to go to Japan and make games. Games are going to be bigger than film. I don't know about you, Hoffman, but what are we going to do? We need another Hoffman. And I turned to him, my light bulb went off in my head. My brother was in Hollywood at the time, struggling. He was working for, one of these record stores. It's called Sam Goody. It doesn't exist anymore. All those stores went out of business. But he was working in a dead-end job. He also knew nothing about Hollywood, but I figured I didn't either. And he wanted to be a music producer, but he had no job. So I said, my brother is available. You could hire my brother. That's another Hoffman. And he looked at me. He goes, Does your brother have any experience? And I'm like, no, but neither did I. That's right. Okay, we're hiring him. So literally, they put my brother in my job and I took off to Japan. And that is what I learned. I'm breaking into Hollywood. You never totally overcome dyslexia. It's like, it's built into who you are. It's a biological condition, but you can compensate for it. And you compensate for it like you do anything. You just read a lot. But honestly, reading like novels is painful to me. Reading like big, thick books, painful to me. So I could write, but it would be full of mistakes. But I would just have to have other people proofread what I wrote. Even if I read it like a dozen times, I couldn't get all the mistakes. I never see my mistakes. My eyes just skip over it. So like all things in life, you just hunker down and do your best to make up for your deficiencies. And the irony is I'm a writer today. Like I write all these books and I'm dyslexic. So it wouldn't be the profession that you think I would wind up in. But I'd always dreamed of being a writer, but I just never read books as a child. So I was actually a really horrible writer, but you put enough work into anything and you gradually get better. So I say, hard work, like you don't let your limitations hold you back, but you understand that you're going to have to work double or triple as hard to just get to where somebody else is. I get asked, is it nature or nurture all the time? Like, can you learn to become a great entrepreneur, or, does it have to be innately part of who you are? And my answer to it is it's not that simple. It's neither one nor the other. So can you be Elon Musk? Well, probably not. But can you be a much better entrepreneur than you would have been if you apply yourself and are always open to learning and experimenting and trying new things? Absolutely. And let me give you an example. The people like Elon Musk that really excel in the world, they were given some natural abilities, but they also worked extremely hard. You look at Elon Musk, like he doesn't sleep. He sacrifices family life. He is always on top of everything he does. Now he's a very creative person, like extremely creative. And he is also really always pushing the limits, taking huge risks. He has a high risk tolerance. So he has the fundamental traits that make up successful entrepreneurs. And he's a master at PR, like PR stunts, every other day he has something new. I mean, his brain is working, he's always on the cultural zeitgeist and leading the way. But you don't have to be all of those things to be successful. You may not be Elon, but you can be successful, and actually really successful, if you understand a few things. First of all, really important to understand what your strengths are. What are you really exceptional at? And this is where the nature and nurture things comes. Like I said, if you're 4'9", it doesn't matter. You're not going to be a great NBA star. You're just not. If there are certain things about you that you cannot change, that are fundamentally not going to help you progress in your field, then you need to recognize those. And you need to figure out a way around them. The people who are successful figure out ways around their own, let's call them disabilities, or their own weaknesses, their own limitations is probably the best word. So if you are limited in certain areas, in areas that you can change marginally, but you can't change that well. I like to say, when the really smart people, whether you're being a creative person, a business person, a scientist, whatever it is, you will hone in on the areas that you are naturally exceptional at. And you will put an oversized amount of time, of your time and your resources into developing those parts of you. And then you will figure out how those traits, those that you have, can actually have an impact on the outside world. it's not that you don't study. Like Elon Musk, like he's reading books on rocket science. He, read the whole Encyclopedia Britannica when he was a kid. He was sucking up knowledge from a very young age, always pushing himself. Those are traits of an entrepreneur. If you're not going to even do that, forget it. Like if you're not going to make an effort, you are not. If you are lazy, you probably shouldn't go into being an entrepreneur. I will tell you. But if you are driven, and you can recognize the areas that you really excel and then complement yourself with people, surrounding yourself with people who can actually fill in your gaps. So certain people are really good like at sales and promotion, but they aren't so good at the details. Like they can paint a big picture, they can do all these things. But if they're also really good at getting people on board on their team who are really good at executing on their big crazy ideas like Elon does, then they can actually build an organization that is much bigger, more powerful and sustainable than them alone. So you take Elon Musk alone, if he was all by himself, he wouldn't be running any of these companies. You don't build Tesla or SpaceX or any big organization, as a solo person. You build it by assembling the people like a machine around you that can get it done. So he has those skills. But I tell entrepreneurs right away, like, look, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. Like some people just won't be happy because there is a huge amount of stress in it. Certain people don't deal with uncertainty well. So if you can't find a way to actually enable yourself to embrace change, embrace uncertainty, have a high risk tolerance, have the ability to push yourself further, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur. No, you should not. However, if you have those abilities, even if you are, let's say, mediocre, like in the beginning, you can make yourself much better. And as soon as you can identify what I call that superpower in yourself, that latent superpower that you might not even know, and really use that as kind of your spearhead, your entry point into the world, that is when you have a chance to make things take off. And even then, it is not certain. There's also a lot of variables in the world and a lot of luck. It requires a lot of luck. It is really hard to divorce your self-perception, your identity from what you do in the world and the reaction and how the world reacts. And it can be crushing. Now, some people are naturally more immune to this. Let's face it, that is one of it allows some people to excel in the world because literally they are genetically programmed where they don't care what other people think. They're just going to do whatever they do. And they have this, outsized belief in their own abilities. And they've done studies and they have shown that entrepreneurs tend to be overly and unrealistically optimistic. They tend to believe in themselves when they shouldn't, when there's really no evidence for that they have anything special, but they believe they're special. And belief plays a huge part in determining your destiny, but it isn't everything. So it's like all things in life. Like life is never clear cut. Like it's never just one thing. Just believing in yourself is enough. No, but I would say believing in yourself, being overly optimistic, those will increase your odds. Will they make it happen? No. You have to be able to accept rejection. And so fundamentally, if you are going to do something new, if you are going to break new ground, be innovative, create something that, nobody else has created in the way you've created it, then you are fundamentally, by the nature of what you're doing something that is prone to failure because it hasn't been tried. Things that have been tried over and over, you can be pretty sure it's going to happen similarly the next time. But those things tend not to break out. So this means you're going to take risks and more often than not, you're going to get slapped in the face or knocked down or knocked even unconscious because literally you're going to take a big punch, right? And you're going to have to pick yourself off the ground and go again. So there are ways where you can make those blows that you're going to get in life less painful, and that allows you to continue. So if you're super sensitive and you just can't handle the pain of emotional rejection and self-doubt, then it's going to be really hard for you. Again, maybe you're choosing the wrong path for you. And there are different paths for everybody. Some people are much better in supportive roles. Some people are better in leadership roles. Some people want to do something that they're never going to be good at. Other people naturally love to do what they're good at. People, there's so many different types of people and combinations of people and abilities that what I tell you, my fundamental rule is this: go out there, don't care what happens, because you're going to get knocked flat. And if you feel the pain, you have to take that pain as a challenge. You can't take it as, oh my God, I can't go through this again. You can say, hit me harder. Like, hit me harder because I'm getting back up. You have to hit me harder. Like every time I started a company, boom, I was on the floor at some point thinking, we will never get funded. We will never I can't go through another round of pitching investors, and having them doubt me. But I would just get back up and do it. But I wouldn't do the same exact thing over again, like in the exact same way. That is a recipe for failure. So if you get knocked down, boom, you wrote a novel, it was crappy. You get back up, you write another novel, it's crappy. You get back up, you write another. Maybe at a certain point you have to recognize you're not a good novel writer. There are other skills that you may have that you can really excel at. But if you see yourself improving each time, and actually you're trying different things when you write each novel and getting different reactions, and you strategically look at the market and look at what you're good at writing, how you're good at writing, then there is a chance that you could become that novelist. But you will have a lot of pain on the way, but there is a chance you can be successful. The thing that separates successful people from not successful people is that they try over and over and over, but they change the parameters of what they try. They don't try exactly, they try it in a different way. They try to use different skill sets. They try different topics. They experiment. They look at the whole world as a giant petri dish, and they are out there experimenting to see what takes off. And I will tell you, it's not just you. It's not just how hard you try. I mean, you can work forever on something, and if you're heading the wrong direction, it doesn't matter. You're still going the wrong direction. What you need to do is figure out, you need to catch what I call waves. Like, you need to catch, there are waves in society, always coursing through society, waves of change, and you cannot fight these. You cannot go against these, but you can definitely be one of the people to catch one of those waves. And the really most amazing creators and entrepreneurs, they're also opportunists. They will actually be out in the world looking for these waves and saying, wow, can I contribute to this? Can I get in on that? Like, can I make that happen? And all it takes is one big one, and you've made your career. Like, you've literally made your career. So, the fundamental rule, I'll reiterate it one more time, is always keep trying, but never try the same exact thing twice. Always look at the feedback you're getting, adjust, course correct, change how you're doing it. What am I doing wrong? What could I do wrong? I will tell you a story right now. When I went out raising capital for my companies, venture funded companies, I had no connections. I had no venture capital connections. I had no, in those early days, there were no incubators or accelerators. I was on my own. But what I did, and what I learned really fast, is I would go present my vision to investors. And then I would sit back, what a lot of entrepreneurs don't do, and actually listen to what these really smart people were telling me. These people who I couldn't even afford to pay for their time. Yet because I'd gotten into a meeting to pitch them, instead of just talking at them, I wanted them to tell me what they thought of my ideas. And they came up with a lot of good ideas. Oh, and I started to see what things that the investor community was looking for in startups. And I would always review in my mind every detail of every pitch I ever gave, and then I would edit it. I'd go back to my presentation, my PowerPoint and my pitch, and I'd totally redo it after every pitch, like tweaking it, making it better, taking the best ideas they had, putting them in there, taking things that I had said that didn't resonate with them or where I'd stumbled, and tweaking those or entirely removing them. And sure enough, I got really good at pitching, really good at closing deals. This same talent, it doesn't matter if you're an artist, a creative, or a business person, you need to put this process into place. I like to say that early stage entrepreneurs are often better off not getting funding, too much money, too early. Because if you get too much money, what it does is it locks you into a path. Like, as soon as you get a lot of money, you start hiring people. As soon as you hire people, you have to have a direction, a plan. You have to fix a plan, and you have to point everybody in that direction and start going. However, in the early stage of any venture, any company or business or project, a lot of times you are trying to figure out what the world really needs, what the world will respond to. And you don't know this when you begin. You have ideas in your head, but they are only ideas in your head. And they are dreams, they are visions you have, but they have to connect with reality somewhere to make this thing take off. So in the early stages, what you want to do is have just enough money so that you can go out into the world with something and show and put it out in there and start to see what happens. This could be a prototype. This could be, an alpha version. This could be even just a PowerPoint or, you going out and talking to potential customers. You need to start to get that feedback from the real world about what's in your head so that you can start to form that and pick a direction. And if you get a lot of money, like some entrepreneurs do, they get a big check too early, they can use that check to put the pedal to the metal, start growing their business, taking off in a direction. But more often than not, if they haven't really found what we call a product market fit, if they haven't found that there is a huge pent up demand for what they have and that they are the ones to provide it to customers in a unique way, then they just end up going in a wrong direction. And they spend a lot of time and a lot of money building something that nobody wants. And basically they run off a cliff. Like, it ends up killing them. And I have seen this happen to so many startups. There are so many companies out there that actually, there's companies out there that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars on an idea that never worked. And it never worked, like boo.com. You don't know these companies anymore because they don't exist, but they literally used that massive amount of capital to mask the problem. They were acquiring customers because they had so much money, but they were feeding in customers, and then they're showing investors growth. But all that growth was spending more money to acquire those customers than those customers would ever spend on their product because the customers didn't care that much and would leave. And then they ended up just tanking. You don't want to go down this path. You want to really rely primarily on your resourcefulness in the beginning and just enough capital to really just get in front of the people with something tangible that they can respond to, and then gather data. And based on that data, when you see, wow, I've really hit the mother lode. Like this isn't, there's a huge demand for this. That's the time to go out and get a lot of money. Only at that point. Our culture is youth obsessed. And people think, oh, there are so many young entrepreneurs out there who dropped out of college like Mark Zuckerberg and founded these huge world-changing companies. And, in Silicon Valley especially, like the investors, they want young people. Young people get it. But they aren't actually, they are going off the media and not off of actual data. If you look at the actual data, older, more experienced entrepreneurs have a much higher success rate than younger entrepreneurs. Now you're like, that can't be true because there's so many successful young entrepreneurs these days. Well, it is true. But the fact is that there are exponentially more young people starting companies than there are older people. When people get into their 40s and 50s and beyond, usually they're set. And they have families, they have a comfortable life, they have a home, a mortgage to pay for. They aren't going to be taking the big chances that young people are. So when you look at it, there might be 10 or 20 times more young people for every older entrepreneur out there trying. So yes, maybe 3 of those or 2 of those out of the 10 or 20 wind up being successful, while only 1 out of the older pool of entrepreneurs. So it seems like young people are 2 or 3 times more successful than young people. It's just a numbers game. It's not reality. The one thing that makes something unmistakable is when you do something in a way that nobody else has done before. All of us, humans respond to novelty. We crave new, when we see something, if we see the same thing over and over and over, we just don't process it in the same way. But when we see something for the first time that gets our neurons firing in our brain, pow, That's it. And it has to be an expression of what's going on right now, what matters to people, what people are already attuned to, but opens up a door for them to see either themselves or the world through a different lens. That is unmistakable. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked it, hit the subscribe button and share it with your friends. You can help us create more great content by subscribing and sharing. Also, if you want to access our online startup program, our investor network, and our entrepreneur resources, just come to founderspace.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Fagan.
And I'm Paul Becker.
We're the hosts of the Financial Dads Podcast. It's for anyone who wants to become wiser at managing their family's finances.
We're not experts, we're just dads. We share our successes, failures, and experiences with money.
Download the Financial Dads Podcast on iTunes, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out on Facebook. Just go to financialdads.com.
Because managing your money can be stressful.
But that's why the Financial Dads are here to help.